As always, thank you so much for your time and welcome to PM News. Now, Professor, this matter has been dragging on for too long and has sowed some divisions within the Federation. Could this be the end of Mr. Vavi?
Well, it depends solely on him because I think he can reinvent himself. I think that question that you are raising is informed by the general view that says it is cold outside the ANC. And we have seen others who have moved on to create reasonable comfort and warmth for themselves. But if we are talking about him holding the moral high ground he had and being an influential voice and indeed a voice of conscience, as it has been the case, I think it would not be easy within the tripartite alliance.
Now, Professor, does it seem to you that there won't be any reconciliation between him and his comrades given his alliance with NUMSA's General Secretary Ivan Jim, and also that he wanted to be nominated as the country's deputy president?
Well, we'll hear so much. Who didn't do that in the past? And what is the charge sheet? What does it say? Are the allegations or the charges bearing at least a correlation with what happened in the past vis-a-vis other leaders within the tripartite alliance? You see, where they compromise themselves is that oftentimes they don't act on principle, but they go along with cults and with personality politics. And that's why as COSATU finds itself immensely compromised today, and it has been so even in the past, precisely because they act not on principle, but on the expediencies of the day.
Now, Professor, you mentioned earlier on, which is quite interesting, that Mr. Vavi should be able to reinvent himself. What do you think his next step should be to salvage his career in the trade union movement? For
me, Vavi, I fault him on one indiscretion. But there is no question that he was a voice of reason. And he positioned himself as a champion of the poor, or the cause and the interest and the rights of the poor. I don't think there is any dispute in that regard. But precisely because of that stance, it put him in conflict and in contradiction with the ruling party and with the tripartite alliance. I don't think there is anybody who can fault him on what he said. They may say it is impolitic because he belongs to the alliance, but certainly by far the majority of the people are at least aligned with the views that he expressed, the positions he took, firm stance anti-corruption. I think on that score, I still believe even if we were to venture in another direction and forego the alliance, he could still find a voice that can positively influence the developments in the country. Because influence and leadership is not only about I being number one. You can be an influential leader amongst and within and with the collective.
Now, Professor, COSATU was quite vocal in their support for the ANC's manifesto. Do you think this is the general feeling among other affiliations, with, of course, the exception of opposition parties?
That's precisely my point, that some of the things that they embrace today, a few months or years ago, they didn't embrace. They were vocal, they were vehemently opposed to them. So why is it that there is a toning down? Is it because of political opportunism? Perhaps others would say it is. But for me, the alliance had its day. Indeed, we needed it prior to 1994. But post-1994, there was a contradiction in terms of relations, and indeed they will continue to experience this strife and challenges. Take Vavi out. I don't see the same champions and the protagonists of today sustain their relationship going forward, as long as they are in the alliance and the political interest supersedes labor interests, while primarily and most importantly, they should be about labor interests, taking care of the interests of the affiliates, the interests of those who pay subscription fees.
Thank you so much, as always, Professor, for your insight. That was independent political analyst, Professor Leseba Defo, talking to us about COSATU's conference today in regards to the ruling party.